Power panel. Joining us is Aaron McPike, reporter for Real Clear Politics, Democratic strategist Richard Fowler, and Republican strategist John Ferry. It's great to see all of you. Aaron, I want to start with you because Eric Holder would not be the first attorney general in history to be found in contempt of Congress. And we talk about modern times. Janet Reno was found in contempt by a committee in '98. Former White House counsel Harriet Miers, White House Chief of Staff Joshua Bolten, found in contempt by a committee in '07. How much of an impact do you think it would this contempt vote have for Eric Holder and then the wider implications for the Obama administration?
At this point, it doesn't seem like much. I think the bigger issue here is for House Republicans who look like they have an axe to grind with the White House, and they're taking their eye off the ball in terms of the economy and jobs, which is what voters are talking about. Thomas, I was just on the Romney bus tour over the weekend and talking to voters, and they really are only talking about jobs and the economy and debt. And this is not something that's resonating with voters out there in the country at all.
I want to ask you all to stand by right now. We were going to dip in because Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton was speaking. She just wrapped up. So in the meantime, we're going to continue to listen in. Elijah Cummings now has the floor. But as we look at this and talk about this, Richard, either way this goes, is Holder now potentially a political liability for the president, especially when we talk about the fact that this is the first time that President Obama has ever had to use an executive privilege as such in the course of his presidency?
Not at all, Thomas. I don't think that that Eric Holder is a liability for the president for a couple of reasons. One, I think what we've seen from Eric Holder is we've seen leadership on this. He indicates that there is some questions about the Fast and Furious program, and we need to get to the bottom of those questions. But in order for us to get to the bottom of those questions, we have to start at the starting point, which is 2006 under the George W. Bush administration. And I think that is where that's where it needs to start. What ICE is doing is he's just isolating Eric Holder, and that's what creates a political witch hunt, not the fact that, you know, this program had some questions to it.
All right, so when we talk about exactly what is being held out, it's documents past the February 4th of 2011 date, documents that the Attorney General says are not related to the course of conduct of the investigation of Fast and Furious. So, John, when you hear that, doesn't it look like this is some type of political witch hunt? And as Aaron pointed out, that it makes them, to those that are casually watching this, and independents across this country, that there is some type of axe to grind from the right.
I don't think so, Thomas. Let me say this. With the president coming in at the last minute to say this is executive privilege, that's actually completely stunning, given what the president said when he was running for president on the campaign trail, saying that there's too much executive privilege being used by the Bush White House. The fact of the matter is that the Congress has a right and a duty to get to the bottom of the facts on this Fast and Furious case. And what is the president hiding now from Eric Holder, and why is he asserting executive privilege? I think it's completely stunning and put a whole new political edge to this whole debate.
When you talk about political edge and executive privilege, let's just remind everybody where it stands in terms of a running tally and a scoreboard. If you're talking about President George W. Bush, 6 executive privileges were used during the course of his presidency, 14 under Bill Clinton, and just 1 so far in the first term of President Barack Obama. Aaron, as we look at the scoreboard, as John would like to point out, there has not been a lot of executive privilege used within the Obama administration. So there might be a valid point as to why they feel they need to at this point. But is it just the fact that they feel as if they have to stand up and fight back against what is, as some have called from this hearing itself, a witch hunt?
They do, and look, you know, one of the criticisms about the president, especially from his own base, is that he hasn't stood up to the Republican Party as much as they would like to see. And between this order on Friday that stopped the deportation of some illegal immigrants and then this executive privilege order today, it looks like he's starting to show some more fight in him, and I think that will resonate a lot with his base as opposed to what John might be suggesting.
All right, so Richard, when we think about the fact that, as we cannot forget in this, that the border agent Brian Terry lost his life out of all of this, certainly there is a ripple effect for the family of Brian Terry, for the colleagues, the border agents, for everybody that puts themselves in the line of fire when trying to protect our country. But is this too inside baseball for a lot of people, and people are losing sight of the real problem?
That is it. It is too much of inside baseball. I think it's lost touch with the American people, and that's why we've seen Eric Cantor come out and say, we've got to put a stop to this because this takes us off message and takes us off focus. The American people care about jobs, they care about the economy, and they care about getting back to work. And what we've seen Congress do is they've stalled on this they've stalled on this Eric Holder issue. A couple weeks ago was sex select abortions, when they should be focusing on creating jobs in this country and working with the president. And what the president has done is he's triangulating himself against the Congress, saying, you guys don't want to pass the DREAM Act, that's fine. I will do everything within my power to make sure that people who came to this country at no fault of their own can now stay in this country. Same goes with executive privilege today. The president's continuing to show his true leadership while Republicans continue to quabble over who did it and the witch hunt.
Let's go ahead and listen in. Congressman Chaffetz has the floor now in this hearing.
Frustrating to all of us, and it appears thoroughly to us that the department is really trying to figure out a way to push the information away from their political appointees at the department. He was talking about the Department of Justice. Those are things that we should be concerned about. Nobody wants to put a conclusion to this more than Chairman Issa. I want to put a conclusion to this. Everybody on this panel should want to put a conclusion to this. Now, when these problems and challenges came up to the GSA, they dealt with them. Martha Johnson stepped down.
So, John, the congressman there is saying that he himself, Congressman Issa, they want to find a conclusion to this. What is the political ground to be gained by seeing this all drawn out?
Well, Thomas, let me say, first of all, there is the campaign, and then there's the responsibility to govern. And actually, this committee has a responsibility to do oversight over the Department of Justice. And let's not kid ourselves, the Department of Justice has had a lot of big problems lately. They lost the case against John Edwards. They lost the case against Roger Clemens. They seem to be doing all these things and wasting a lot of taxpayer money. The fact of the matter is that the Justice Department needs some oversight, and that's a responsibility of governance. I think Darrell Issa is doing exactly the right thing to try to get to the bottom of what is obviously some sort of scandal that led to the loss of a border agent. This is something that really the government, the Congress has a responsibility to look into. And by asserting executive privilege, I think the president is really doing a disservice to the American people. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a big campaign issue, but it does have to be a part of the functioning government.
John Ferry, Richard Fowler, Aaron McPike, thanks to all three of you for joining us, and we are going to continue to watch this hearing. Coming up, I'm going to speak to two members of this committee, Democrat Peter Welch and Republican John Mica, who was speaking earlier. We're going to be back with much more right after this.